So I remember not being that impressed with this movie when it came out. I saw it once on Laserdisc, probably
Times change.
yeah, 6 months after 6 months after I watched it on Laserdisc. And now on this viewing, my opinion has gone up considerably. And at its best, this movie reminded me of how Chayefsky's Network was way ahead of its time in shining a light on a segment of the media and how it uses outrage culture to exploit both the on-air talent as well as the audience in service of corporate profits. I don't know. I think some of you guys did. I was a capital C commuter for 27 years. I drove 500 miles a week to and from work. I think I did the math. It's something like 8,000 hours in the car or something like that. And I'm probably at least half of that. I listened to thousands of hours of talk radio. Now, I'm not familiar with either Alan Berg or Tom Lakis, who I guess was Lakis is the guy that he looked at as well. But I listened to a ton of Howard Stern, even though I know it's different. There was a period of time right after the 2000 election where I listened to countless hours of AM political talk radio because I was trying to understand what the fuck was happening. But I think, having listened to all that, I feel like Bogosian fucking nailed the relationship between the on-air rage merchant and the broken, fucked up people that call into those shows looking for that dopamine squirt of acknowledgement. Especially love the depiction of the ones who call in regularly expecting to be hung up on.
And then don't.
Well, yeah. Now, like many, I find the dumpster fire that we all know as social media profoundly depressing, but it was a nice dose of perspective to be reminded that years before we had Twitter, we had talk radio.
Right. Yeah.
Those people have always been out there. The difference is their bullshit wasn't clogging my feed up all day because they were in their individual markets talking to whoever, that was the host in that particular radio. If you weren't listening, you didn't know it was happening.
Right.
They're still out there.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the movie goes, I think Stone did a pretty decent job throwing every cinematic trick, split diopter, you could think of to make a movie.
Split diopter is the best thing you can do.
Well, this is a movie about a guy in a booth on a mic and people on the phone, but I feel like it was visually engaging. The supporting cast, especially Alec Baldwin and John McGinley.
John C. McGinley.
Yeah, did a great job. I think Michael Wincott,
Dr. Cox.
Mr. Wincott was maybe shot out of a cannon, could have dialed it back about 50%.
Pretty much.
Bogosian had me until his bug-eyed rant at the end, which I'm guessing played a lot better from a distance on stage than when it's right here. But I do think this was
disagree.
I think this was a great rewatch. Like I said, Bogosian wrote this, I mean, he gets all the credit because, like I said, I want to know where
this is his first real movie role.
I want to know where Chayefsky's Time Machine was. I think Bogosian was onto something. I mean, this was 30-something years ago, 35 years ago, this movie came out.
Yeah.
And he had tapped into something that was more isolated than it is now, I think.
I was 5 when this movie came out.
I just want to quickly ask, isn't there a screenplay credit with Oliver Stone on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oliver Stone.
So I know it was the stage production that Bogosian created himself, and he obviously starred in. And then when it was adapted for the screen, Oliver Stone got involved in.
And they fought each other constantly
because they probably had to. Stone had to write the stuff outside of the studio.
Which is not in the
to make a movie out of it, basically.
Not in
the stage play takes place entirely in the studio.
That's completely obvious in this film that this is actually like a one-man, one-act,
and the way the lights go up and down in the studio when he gets on the air and gets off the air and stuff, that is so much like watching a stage play.
Yeah.
Yep. There it is.
And I'm sure that doesn't happen in actual movies, in actual radio stations.
I got one more dumb little anecdote.
Go ahead.
Sandy and I were in Morocco in 2015. We were there for like a week and a half. And, I think we get all the way to the end of the trip. We're in Marrakesh or something. And every city we were in, we got a different local guide. And I remember at the end of this going up to the guide and saying, this trip has been blown my mind because all the all the everything I had in my head about what this trip is going to be like. We were in a Muslim country, and like I said, basically my view of this part of the world is filtered through Western media, and so it was nice to come down here and see it for myself and see how wrong I was. And he looks at me, and goes, "It's the same down here. You have Fox News, we have Al Jazeera.
Oh yeah,
More money to be made in watching us fight than having us get along." And that is exactly what this fucking movie
yeah,
is about.
absolutely. It's all capitalizing on conflict, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that little rant at the end of like, oh God, that was good. Do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
I will say that in 2015, the Moroccan government didn't like Al Jazeera because they were talking about what the Moroccan government was actually doing.
Yeah, that's true. Now,
Whatever.
I saw this in a theater when it came out. It was at the Kabuki actually, and saw it, and I was like, well, it's definitely felt like it was torn from today's headlines. It's like this was Allenberg only happened a couple of years before, and so this felt like the thing is, I will get that in a second, but that kind of set the tone for me. I know they're talking about like this guy who is liberal and Jewish and a talk radio host in a conservative audience, basically baiting him every day, and like, you know, trying to get a rise out of him. And that was like, at the time I saw it, it was like, wow, that's really, it's kind of laying it all out there. And this is like, again, torn from the headlines. I watched it now and it felt a little bit like a movie of the week. It felt like an issue film. Like, we're taking, this is the issue, talk radio causing conflict, and we're gonna kind of spin it out how we can from beginning to end about how this guy is riling up people and how they, you know, how unreasonable they are. And I think every single person that called him was a straw man. There was everything coming. They're like just local yahoos who are pissed anyway.
That was one of my biggest objections watching it this time, Scott, was that it's like those callers, and I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened to as many hours
of those exact calls.
I haven't listened to as many hours of talk radio as you have, Chris. But to me, it seemed nonsensical and implausible that every single caller that got put through was a complete gibbering moron.
Mm-hmm. What does John C. McGinley do every time he puts someone through? He's like, we got a good one on 4.
Yeah.
We got a good one on 5. Like the McGinley
the
is the filter.
Yeah,
he's get the craziest people.
Okay, but this is my question. I understand McGinley's sending those people through and keeping the stiffs, which obviously includes anybody who's got a brain and has something to say.
Boring.
Or agrees with him.
That's boring. But to me, this was boring. And I didn't understand why he was going to get a national show, because it was the same thing. With some idiot comes up on the air, he belittles them. And
you definitely didn't listen to enough talk radio.
Well, that's
unfortunately, yeah. Like was super.
That's it
to me.
That's how kind of how talk radio worked back then. Yeah, exactly.
I listened growing up. I listened to Tom Likas. I listened to Howard Stern. I listened to Opie and Anthony. I listened to fucking Rush Limbaugh, and this is what they did.
Yep.
They brought people on to fight with them.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't there is no version of this. There's no version of this where it is like a good person or
nuanced discussion.
Right. It's about hatred. It's about anger, and this is
rage farming.
This is the prototype of what we are now as a society. Like, this is every person getting into a dumb Twitter argument. Like, this is every person getting into a Facebook feud because somebody stole their headphones. Like, this is just the world that we live in. Like, and this movie hits harder today than it did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, because it has gotten so broken.
It's gotten much worse than this. That's for sure.
The difference is you're reading this shit. You're just not hearing it in the same.
Yeah.
Well, and this is this is the facile argument of liberalism, of like, oh, I can beat you with logic. I can beat you with like appeals to emotion. Like, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. Like, you're not going to change anyone's mind. You're not going to make the world a better place. You're just yelling at people for the sake of yelling at people. Like, and every time somebody, it's so interesting to me because every time in this movie someone brings up like direct action or like revolution or whatever, the first thing he does is shut them down.
Mhm.
Like, it's, I get to continue to live in my perfect world,
Oh yeah.
and you don't get a better life.
Oh yeah, he's very much let the good times roll. He likes to
Right.
keep
Pretty
things
much.
just where they are, which goes back to him as a character. This is one of those unlikable protagonists.
He's a bad person.
He's a bad
Very
person.
bad person.
Very bad person, and he just gets
Playing with fire. Fucked
thing is-
around and found out.
The thing is, at the beginning, you're kind of like, well,
Alan Berg was a bad person
he was,
too.
oh
like,
yeah, he probably was. But beginning of the film, you're kind of like, well, he's interesting and he's trying to fight the good fight, at least from the California perspective. But then after a while, after you see what he does to the people in his life, you realize this guy's
when
no
you see
fucking good.
What the formula is, he's not selling any kind of like, I'm bringing an enlightened point of view.
Right.
I'm bringing conflict and pain. I'm bringing pain.
I'm bringing
You get to see-
conflict. I'm
you
bringing
get to see people
conflict to
get-
prevent change.
Yeah, that too. Right.
And
You-
that is the neoliberal point of view.
status quo.
like-
Maintain the status quo.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna blow these people up in this country on the other side of the planet, and you're not gonna care about it. Like, it is the neoliberal point of view of like, oh well, Vietnam was bad because we eventually decided it was. You know,
Mhm.
we didn't think it was bad at the time. You know,
Well,
and like
Well, there's a whole bunch of people right now that are deciding that something is bad that's happening. And
Well, okay, let me ask a question then. This guy is a talk show host. He's a popular one. He's in Dallas, Texas in the 80s.
Yep.
And with that very conservative fan base. And he's liberal and Jewish and everything that
I'd
probably
love to hate him.
love to hate him. Do you think that he felt he had an agenda, that he was going to try to actually help people?
no,
Or is
he
it-
says that he
No,
says
no.
that at the end of the movie.
I know that, but okay, what does he say then?
He says, I'm here for the conflict and I'm here for the ratings.
Right.
Like, I'm not here. I'm
There's
not here
more
to
money
change.
to be made in watching us fight.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I'm not
and
here
it's
to
like a
change
confessional.
people's minds.
The final monologue, which is him on that spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was rather clever, actually.
I actually think the more clever shot is when he goes back into the studio and they have the Dutch angle.
Dutch
on
angle.
him.
Yeah. I
That's
know.
pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
It's like he's broken. Like,
Yeah.
he's gone.
All right.
Like, that camera is telling you that this guy is like on a different plane of existence because he has realized that all he has to do to get the things that he wants is to be the worst version of himself.
Right. So he basically, he needs his ex-wife, and he says as much. And when she opens up to him in that caller,
She tells her to fuck off.
Yeah.
for the ratings,
Yeah.
make it a better show that night.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and he's so like, where did she go? Where the fuck do you think she went, bro?
It's not a character. She's a
Uh-huh.
fucking person.
Right. By the way, I think that her performance in that scene is maybe the best performance in the film.
I mean,
I
Ellen
think
Green or what? Yeah.
Yeah. Bogosian, I think, is great, capital G, great, doing that thing he does when he's on mic.
Yeah.
But putting the camera right up to him and having him play the scenes that were outside of the radio studio, it's like, man, he's an okay actor.
Also, Alec Baldwin did a great
but
job.
Alan Berg was a shoe salesman who became a suit salesman who became a radio person. Like, that's
Did
literally
he also look like 70s Howard Stern? Or
yes, of course he did.
Probably, yeah. But like I
He
said,
was blonde though.
yeah.
But, and he got and that's the one thing that, like, I've been thinking about Alan Berg a lot recently, and like the one thing that this movie misses, that with what really happened to Alan Berg, is he was shot to death in his own driveway
Mhm.
by a white supremacist. Like, it was like, you don't know what the motivations are of the guy who
the
killed
guy
him.
at the end? Yeah, not really.
No,
And, like,
actually, part of a
that's-
the guy who killed him, Alan Berg, was part of a white supremacist organization.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
the thing that this movie misses is it misses the politics of what the murder was,
right.
which feels very liberal in a certain way of like, well, bad things happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why?
Wait a
Why
minute.
do they have to?
Yeah, that's not true because the guy who calls in, who they have the whole long discussion about, right wing white supremacist ideology. That's the guy who shoots him. It's Rocket's Red Glare, who
Yeah.
talks on the radio and then later comes over and shoots him. It's the same guy, I assume, who's sending him the letters with swastikas and the
Dead rat.
But they reuse so many voices in this movie that it's really difficult to tell that that's who it is.
That's very true. It almost felt like his assassination was like
Michael Wincott. Michael Wincott plays 7 different people in this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
And also, I have to give it up to Michael Wincott for every point that he's in this movie. And also, he was 30 years old, and they bring him into the studio, and they're like, "This is the youth of America," and it's like, "Bitch, he's 30."
It's Red Glare is credited with 2 characters in the IMDb.
No, yeah, that was.
But they didn't
Killer and Redneck Caller.
Right, they didn't credit anyone correctly in this because of how many different voices all of the voice actors had to play.
Well, his assassination at the end kind of felt like, because like I said, 88, everybody knew about Alan Berg. It's like we all knew how this film was going to end.
I didn't.
I did. When I came in,
I don't think I never heard about
when I sat down, I knew.
No, most people didn't.
Whatever. Either way, I'm saying that it's just a curtain ending. It's like we all knew that he was going to get assassinated, and maybe he didn't know about Alan Berg.
You knew he was going to die.
He was going to die,
regardless of how.
What market was Alan Berg? Was he also Dallas?
Denver. No, Denver. Yeah, same deal, but at least back then.
I feel like one of the major problems with this movie, besides the fact that it doesn't interrogate the politics of the assassin, is also that it doesn't really interrogate his politics either. Like his
politics are ultimately, he takes a liberal stance and he probably has some of those beliefs, but the point is that they're for sale. They're just a tool to get ratings.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, there's a question for you, John, because I know you pretty well. If you went to Texas and you did like an hour radio show like this guy did, you know what I mean?
Would I get shot?
You're from coastal California. You have your own assembly. It's like same as mine. How do you think we do? I'd sink like a fucking stone, man. I'd probably get shot in the parking lot when it was over, basically.
I wouldn't. I think, to be honest, Scott, I think you'd probably do better at this because I think you'd be more combative on the radio.
Well, I love fighting people online
more than we do, Scott.
I was fighting people online today. I had an anti-vaxxer come on one of my posts. I says, "How do you do all this research when you're busy making tinfoil hats all day long?"
I got into a few arguments.
How'd that work for you,
Facebook.
Scott?
I won.
I got into
Did you
on Facebook, and it left such a bad taste in my mouth. Basically, if I get into an argument like that, like a flame war online, it ruins not my day. It ruins me for about 3 or 4 days. I think about it.
I know. Your thing is, like I said,
it's not whether I feel like I won or I lost is irrelevant. I just feel bad.
Well, that's because you have a lot of empathy. You see, you're worried about the feelings of people around you in a larger sense.
Yeah.
Same here. When that kind of thing happens, it's like,
or I just get depressed about how awful people.
This total stranger in some place I never heard of, I kind of like told him to go fuck himself and make tinfoil hats. So
I don't want to be that guy.
But it bothers me for 10 minutes and I'm over it. Then I show it to Eileen. It's like, look what I said. It's like, oh, that's hilarious. So I'm done.
So to answer your original question, I would not go to Texas and be on the radio.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
I'm with John on that one.
I would do.
I'm like, because I worry that will happen and it will ruin my whole week. I just don't engage.
I would do it. If I had Texas on radio in Texas for 1 hour, I'd do it because these people are so fucking wrong. I would do it.
There's nothing you can say that will convince them otherwise.
Who cares?
He doesn't want to.
It would feel like shooting 10,000 gallons of water out of a garden hose. I was like, yeah, that's great. I just got that out, man.
I thought you were going to say
it's a weird.
I don't need another orgasm for the rest of my life now.
I was going to say that's a weird replacement for coming, but
okay. No, I know what I was saying. Don't worry.
All right, now I want to know what the guy with the bloody head behind him has to say about this film.
Mr. Corner, Mr. Jim's Corner.
Mr. Jim.
It has a lot of the problems that later Oliver Stone movies have. It's not subtle in any
Oh,
sense
not
of the
least.
It's
word.
not subtle.
It is the garden hose.
Yes, it's the garden hose.
Oh, the movie that has the dolly track in the opposite direction of how the thing is spinning. I can't believe it's not subtle. Like,
Yeah.
it's weird. Weird.
Good point. Good point.
It's also kind of exhausting to watch.
It was. It went on too long. I felt that way about the whole movie. It really
Yeah.
shows that it was a play.
And when you know when you know that the play when you know that the play doesn't step outside of the box,
Yeah.
like I would love to see the original play version of this.
In a way, it's probably that stood alone, and it probably could have been done as a film that way,
Right.
not opening it up.
Yeah, but Stone's not that guy.
Yep.
No.
No,
Yeah, Stone is definitely not that guy.
I think he made
No.
this right after Platoon. Platoon was 86. This was
This is
88.
88. Yeah,
Something
almost
in
immediately
between.
afterwards. There might have been
There
one
must
in the
have been
middle.
something in between.
I'll look it up.
Well, he did co-write it, so he was probably busy.
Mhm. Well,
I'm sure he wrote all the shooting scenes.
So is that you liked it or you didn't like it, Jim? Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like the play?
I watched these two movies today back to back. So I watched the
wow.
Mouse and
Hell of a double feature.
Squirrel and Moose show first.
Oh man. Oh, that reminds me. Disney should
I'm
have.
sorry, is Moose and Squirrel?
Yeah.
He is Moose and Squirrel.
Disney should have financed that film, don't you think? All right, just go ahead.
Anyway, yeah, it was okay. I mean, it was a little overwrought, even the writing for Bogosian. I realized it was probably I think it was his first produced play.
Yeah.
It was his first produced play. It was his first real.
Uh-oh.
Regardless of what Jared said in the chat, I like the way that he can make this character hateable and lovable at the same time is fascinating.
Oh.
Like,
Was he lovable ever?
Chris.
no,
Chris.
he is. He
I don't know
absolutely
if he's
is.
lovable, but he's interesting.
No, he's
Interesting and lovable are two totally different things.
He's a dickhead. Come on.
He's a dickhead.
No, because you can love a person like that, and that's okay. Like it's all right that you, much like some of his callers, especially at the end when he's dead and they're calling back in about him.
Actually,
Well, that's a great.
Stop right there. That was a great sequence.
Right. I
Yeah.
loved his voice. I loved his attitude.
I know.
Like, there's so many scenes where it's like you can see how the public revolved around him in a really interesting
But
way.
it said two things. First of all, it told you that people who watched the show or listened to his show loved him, and also it was entertainment. It's like,
right,
our entertainment source is gone. Oh,
Well, and
this is and
his character is an actor, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
It just happens that he's also an asshole who plays an asshole.
Also, Chris, this is a previous question. I did Platoon and he did Talk Radio, but it was the movie in between was Wall Street.
Oh,
Oh.
that's a good one. That is a good one. I've watched
That's a good
it
one.
recently.
But it's about as on the nose as this film.
I just want to point out that
That's Oliver Stone.
we've had two Bogosian movies and two Oliver Stone movies, and I've picked them both.
Right. Are we talking about
I like way more
the other
Oliver Stone movies than I did.
are you talking about Uncut Gems?
Yep.
Oh, is he in that?
Man,
Yeah.
yeah, he is. He's good.
Remember
Yeah,
in that,
he's
yeah.
Arno, the fucking
I'm with you, John.
Yeah.
Oh, was he in that?
I forgot.
I remember that. I think that's why you picked him, because he was in Uncut Gems, basically.
No, I mean,
no, I
like a lot of Oliver Stone movies.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we've only had two, and I picked both of them, and one of them was the football movie, and one of them was this.
I'd pick Natural Born Killers, except I think two or three of you would skip the show that week.
No, it's a fine, crazy, goddamn weird.
Probably his best,
no. I want to know which ones he thinks would skip the show that week, besides
Hey,
John.
No, I mean, NBK is like Oliver Stone doing David Lynch. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think John would want to sit through that movie again.
I said besides
I'll never
John.
No, John would love it. You'd love it, John.
I'll
It's
watch it.
fun.
I've never
It's
seen
fun.
it.
All right, hold on.
What? Oh,
It's a
Oh,
good flick.
Oh!
You should see it.
Now you
Okay.
have to think it.
okay.
Chris.
We're okay. Anything else to add? Because we're probably just go to thumbs at this
no,
point.
I think this movie. I think this movie is aged very well, but I think it says more about this.
It's
country.
gone up in a way that's terrible.
This says more about this fucked up country we live in than anything else. But
Well, maybe that's why I didn't like it as much the second time. Is it's like it's everything is this now. Everything is this goddamn show in this movie, and it's like everything sucks, and it
Yeah,
depresses
the
me.
internet is talk radio.
I know, and it's
Yeah.
like that kind of depresses me a little bit. So
Yes.
maybe that's why I don't
Here,
like it as
that's-
much the first time out.
That's part of it. Part of it to me is kind of I just had the opposite reaction in terms of quality that Chris has had. In that in '88 I was impressed with this, and rewatching it made it diminished it in my eyes. And I'm kind of with Jim. It's like it's too long. It's too much of the same thing. It's like he's in the booth yelling at morons for almost 2 hours, and that's
But
too much.
are they morons? Like that's actually like I think
Yeah,
the thing
they're
that
sort
this-
of acting.
It kind of doesn't matter. It's
call.
they're
Color.
fucking broken people.
yeah.
right.
That-
Everybody in this
broken
film,
people and
everybody in
broken
this film is a broken person. Every
broken
single
people
person.
aren't morons. Like
No, I would
that's
argue that they're just that it's desperation. Like they're just looking, like I said, they're looking for what I wrote. I wrote they're looking for that little dopamine drip of acknowledgement.
Right.
A guy that I know that is more famous than me is talking to me on the phone, even though he's about to hang up on me.
I love
That just made my day.
scene. I love the scene where he goes to the SMU basketball game early on, and the president of SMU comes in and is like, "We're gonna have football in the fall," and the reason he's saying that is because SMU got literally the death penalty
Mhm.
from the NCAA because they were point shaving.
Mhm.
And it's just like, oh, now you're allowed to have football again. And then that woman just throws the drink on him.
Yeah, that's great.
Like it's
Although that's that kind of closed-minded thing we're talking about here.
right.
The other hand of this, other side of this, like, even like can you imagine the biggest moron in Texas who did high school education, works like a menial job, hates liberals, kind of does the thing. They all want meaning out of their life. They want their life to mean something. Everybody does. Doesn't matter where you went to Harvard or you
And
dropped out of high school. And that's part
the tragedy of this.
That's the tragedy of this movie, is that everybody wants to feel a part of a larger thing.
Yes.
People call in and our DJ himself, they everyone wants to kind of like be part of something larger. And that's
even if that larger thing
that's the heartache of this film.
even if that larger thing is something they hate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. Oh my God, that's a great point.
My
dude.
inner misanthrope likes this for all the wrong reasons, so I'm giving it a thumbs up.
All right. I'm gonna go
Okay, I'm
there.
here.
I'm gonna be like this one. I'm almost there, but it's like it's mostly good. So well done.